Welcome to O'Sullivan Guitar Works. Today at OGW Studios we're going to be talking about the Peavey Max 450 bass head. So I came into possession of my Max Bass 450 head last year. I paid for two heads and a cab together. It was a great deal, I couldn't turn down, and I needed it for some practices and for some future gigs, and it has served me very well up until now. Now the Peavey Max bass head is a 450 watt bass head. It delivers 450 watts at 2 ohms, 300 watts at 4 ohms and 170 watts at 8 ohms. It features a 3-band active EQ with shiftable mid-range controls, a contour control and a -10 dB pad switch. It has active crossover with variable frequency and balanced controls. It also includes a buffered tuner send jack output, foot switchable post EQ effects loop, transformer balanced XLR jack with pre-post EQ send switch and ground lift, and preamp out power amp in jacks. And not to forget the DDT power amp compression with defeat switch, which is the speaker protection system. Now these heads are available used on places like Reverb. I've seen them ranging from between 250 to 320. There are other versions of the Max series, which are the 300 watt bass 2x10 combo, which comes in at $429. And there is things like the Peavey Nitro bass 400 watts, and they come in around £250. There are a lot of other amps available in this power range. You have to kind of see what sound you like. Obviously, you can look at your main competitors for Peavey as a bass amp company, and that would be Gale & Kruger, TC Electronic, Ampeg, but this amp is difficult to find competitors exactly to the same specs. It's quite unique and quite a good amp for how much you would pay for it. Even secondhand, you get a lot of features and a lot of options. So now we'll head on over for the all-important sound test, where we'll get to hear the varying features on the Peavey Max 450 bass head. Right, so here we have the amp set up. Now I've got the master volume a quarter turn up, sort of between 0 and 5, and I've got the pre-gain just under that, because to be honest with you, it's so loud when you crank the pre-gain, it's ridiculous. And what we'll do is we'll have a play around with the active, passive switches, and then we'll have a play around with the bright and normal just to get a different sound. Right, so first I'm going to give you the bass BASE sound. As you can hear, quite loud. Now that's in passive mode. We'll put it in active mode. Not much of a difference, but a slight tempering of the volume there for the pickups. And now we'll go bright and normal. So this is bright not engaged. And this is the bright engaged. You hear quite a difference there. A bit more cut, a bit more clarity, pushes those bright sort of, I think it pushes the high end a little bit better at lower volumes. So I'm going to take the bright switch off now. I'm not going to touch the pre-gain because I've got a nice volume here where it's not too over the top, not going to spike the sort of camera audio too much. Now I will have a play around with the contour. The contour is set at 0 at the moment, and we'll have a play with that. Up at half. Wrong one. it a nice warm tone when you crank the contour up. Let's go full volume on the contour just for a bit of perspective on it. Now I'm using my 6mm pick and I'm barely hearing a lot of attack out of the amp. It's really warmed up the tone. If I go to fingers now, that's a really nice sound with the contour cranked. I like both extremes, and somewhere in the middle is probably ideal for me if I'm playing a show, but I really like this extremes from 0 to 10. It's actually really nice. What we do now is we'll turn the contour back down and we will change the EQ first position, which is the low. We're going to shift the low down from 0 a quarter turn. Down on the low. A little less of the high frequencies cutting through, it's quite standard. Right, we'll turn that back up. And now we'll try that a quarter turn up. Boosted those lows really nicely. Very nice there, and we'll go full lows all the way up. Ton of low end, that's really nice. I'll try fingers as well. Quite a bit of rattle there, just I think from things around the cab, because that's pumping out a lot of power there. So yeah, we'll bring that back to 0. The low, and we will try out the mid and mid shift next. So onto the mid now. This is just the basic mid setting. We will go cut, we'll go down first, a quarter turn. Oh, let's get our basic sound first. And let's bring that mid shift down a quarter turn. That's a nice mid sort of sound, nice cut on the mid. It kind of gives you a bit of a bass boost there. Bring that all the way down now. We'll go back up to 0 and then go to a quarter up. Sound there. We'll go all the way up on the mids. Big throat in that one there. Really like the throatiness of that sound. Now, mid shift, we will try cutting first. We're at the 1K position here. We'll cut down a quarter turn. Try cutting another quarter down to nothing basically. So that's really nice there, and we will now crank the mid-shift up, quarter turn up from 1. Again, very cool. Another quarter turn up. Really thumping sound, I like that. Really nice sound. We'll go back to 1K position, and now we've got the last part is doing the high settings. We'll see how the high knob sounds when we mess with it. So first we'll cut a quarter on the high. Cut down again. Nice cut on the highs there, gives that bassy effect. Right, quarter turn up. The usual desired effect of boosting highs is that big bite and that clarity. My tuning's not super low, I'm actually in drop C, so my low string in C is not really massively floppy sounding. I have a decently high action compared to some bass players, and it gives me a lot of clarity when I'm playing faster parts in songs, so I like to put a little extra high in to kind of accentuate those notes and stuff like this. So well, it kind of sounds cool in this amp especially. I'll crank the high all the way. This is going to be quite extreme sounding. Using the 6mm pick, you can really hear the attack. I'll try fingers now, hear the difference. There's a reason this amp is quite well known actually. A lot of bass players I've seen and talked about this amp have said that they recognise and have used one of these in the past. Usually these can be found sort of practice spaces or just venue amps that they have for bands who don't have their own gear, and it's super reliable and you can do quite a lot with it, so that's kind of a testament to how rugged and powerful this amp is. So we messed with a lot of settings there, we'll put it back. What I'll do now is I will make a little sort of sound profile out, something akin to what I would use on my pedal board, and we'll just have a little sound and see what it sounds like just before we go over to our conclusion. For me, this is a very simple start. I like colouring a little bit with the contour. It's just under 5. I'll try it past 5 and higher as well, just to get an idea of the contour's effect on an actual set EQ. And what I've done is I've boosted the lows a little bit up, and I have boosted the mids a little bit up. I've cut the mid shift a little bit down, and I've put the highs up about the same as the mids and the lows. And what you get is this sort of sound, which is afford to whack a little bit more bass in there. And play around with the contour is really cool, so up with the contour. this amp. I think it's got a really nice broad spectrum of sounds. So yeah, you've heard some of the sounds. I mean, I could spend all day going through them all, but it would be way too long, this video, and it probably already is too long as it is. So we'll head over now for our conclusion about the Peavey Max 450 bass head. The options that are open to you with sounds with this head are crazy. There is, I mean, looking at the front panel, you have pre-gain, you have your contour settings, you have your lows, and you have your mids, and you have your mid-shift, and you have your highs. These just open up a massive sort of, you know, a breadth of sounds that you can sort of conjure up by just mixing up some of those things. I mean, the contour on its own gives you a really nice array of sound. Mixing in those mid shifts and the mids, I personally do like a bit of mids in my bass tone. I like to put that in there for a bit of attack, and I still like a lot of high in my bass tone because I like to hear a lot of my pick attack when I'm playing heavy aggressive stuff. The post EQ effects loop is really cool because then you can kind of run like a gate pedal if you want a really tight sound. You can run some other effects post your EQ. That's kind of handy to have. You have your preamp and power amp patch bay, which opens up some more options for you. You have the option to run passive or active basses through it with the switch on the front next to the input. I run active because my EDA 905 is an active bass. And not to forget, there's also the DDT speaker protection system, which is built into this head. And that may be handy if someone's using the amp who's ever used it before, who doesn't really know the amp and might drive it a little hard. So yeah, that's a cool little feature to have. From the sound tests alone, you can hear that there's quite a broad spectrum of sounds you can get. Some of that sound is colored obviously by having quite an interesting pickup configuration on my bass, but I mean, most basses have quite broad pickup configurations. If you have something very simple, very direct, like a one humbucker bass system, or maybe a bridge and a center, and it's something quite simple and you like a really simple sound, this offers you a lot of options and a lot of interesting sort of things you can do around your sort of BASE bass tone. Now this is a second-hand head, it's not really been made new anymore, and for, you know, for the power it puts out, its value for money on the second-hand market is really great. From what I've seen, you're going to definitely get your money's worth if you pick one of these up. Like I said, I got two as a backup, so I was definitely happy to invest a bit of money into it. And bearing in mind that 450 watts is huge. I've played quite big rooms with 200 watt combos and 200 watt heads run through standard speakers. This has a minimum 2 ohm load, so you can get really nice deep frequency out of that, really pushing the air with that 450 watts. I haven't yet really got to crank it. I'm hoping in a gig that's lined up in the future, I'm going to get to use this and really get to sort of crank it as hard as I can and blow some people's socks off. It's a fun amp. It's just it gives you what you need from an amplifier, options. That's the main thing from an amp: power, volume, just aggression, just clarity and options. So that's enough about the Peavey Max 450 bass head. Bass amps are a very tricky thing because, you know, we don't have necessarily the distortion channels. We sometimes can forget that bass amps have their own character. And one of the things about this, I think, that really stands out, it is a workhorse. The fan inside is not very loud at all, so it's easy to use at home in sort of low-level practice settings. I've mic'd it up a couple of times with a kick mic and with a couple of other guitar sort of centric mics, and it gets a really nice sound when mic'd up. I have DI'd it just to test it, and it sounds very cool. And like I said, I can't wait to really get it and push it, crank it out live and see how it fares. But if you like the sound of this amp, go check them out. There are ones available secondhand. Maybe you can check out your Gumtrees and your Facebook marketplaces and your sort of guitar centric secondhand like Reverb. They'll definitely have some of these floating around, and they're not cost prohibitive. They're very cool, and if you're a first time bassist, this would be a great amp to start with. If you're an experienced bassist who you need a backup for something, maybe you have a really expensive amp and you want a backup, or you just want to take this for practices, this would be fantastic. But even I consider myself quite experienced, and I am happy using something like this. I have no qualms taking this amp to the biggest gigs. It's DI'd up, I get my sound, and it will definitely do the job. So we hope you liked the video, hope you enjoyed the sound tests and the info that we've given you. If you did like the video, please do that and like the video. Share, subscribe, hit the notifications, all the things we always ask you to do. We're going to keep on asking until you do it. And leave us a comment letting us know if you liked the video. Let us know if you didn't like the video, but don't be too mean. I'm very sensitive. And leave us some comments on things you'd like to see in the future, or if there's something we missed in this review or any of the other ones we've done. There's plenty of videos up there for you to look at and find mistakes in. Let me know. I'm always happy to read comments. And take it easy and take care.